and welcome to Who Corner to Corner. If you don't know by now, my name is Jeff, and his name is...
Paul. I mean, you say your name's Jeff. I mean, it might not be, for all I know.
Well, yes, it might not be, yeah. For 2 and a bit years, I could have been fibbing you
exactly.
About my
Who
name.
Who knows the reality of anything, really?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Are you plugged in at the back of your head?
It's all a simulation, yeah.
It is, yeah. A simulacra. So this is our Ask Us Anything episode.
Yes, it is.
So we recently put out some tweets and posts asking for your questions to us about Doctor Who or about anything else, and we've had some great questions in, so we're going to get through them.
We're going to go through them. We're going to go through the questions, and we are going to answer them, basically. That is the entire premise of this particular episode. As you can tell, a huge amount of thought went into it.
So, right, I'll kick off.
Go on, mate.
Paul. So here's a question from James H, who's at fitgeek_UK.
Oh, yes,
Twitter.
yes, we know James.
So some of these questions are quite light-hearted and quite fun, and some of them are a bit more in-depth, a bit more probing.
Oh, which one are you starting with then?
So this is quite light.
Oh, that's all right. Phew, that's a relief.
So this
is Monday morning, by the way, and I haven't had my coffee yet, so I don't know how this is going to turn out. This could be anything, literally anything.
So, across any medium, book, TV, comic, audio, etc., what is the single best Who story and the utter worst?
Oh, no! I said it was going to be a light one.
Yeah.
This requires some considerable thought. To be honest, I did see this tweet a couple of days back, and I thought, oh my gosh, I had no idea how to answer it back then, and I still don't this morning, because I'm not sure there is a single greatest Doctor Who story, and if there is, then either my opinion changes over time, and whatever I think is my worst one will be somebody else's favourite. And so
we don't really do worst.
No, we don't. But I think it's the one I enjoy the most and enjoy the least, perhaps. But understanding that somebody else is going to have a completely different opinion, I would never say a Doctor Who story is bad. Actually, I would, possibly. And that maybe is going to be my least favourite one. And you probably know which one it's going to be. It's going to be one of two, actually.
Is it Kill the Moon?
It's either Kill the Moon or Sleep No More. And that's not to say they're bad. It's just to say that they did not... neither of those stories resonated with me in the slightest. As you know from our Battle Royale episodes, I just do not enjoy watching them, and doing so just makes me feel annoyed. So... I can avoid those quite happily. As to the best ones, I mean, I think all my favourite episodes are probably all from the classic era. So there's the story that got me watching Doctor Who as a fan in the first place, which is Warrior's Gate, which I love. And I know that my good friend Mestor the Magnificent on Twitter cannot get it at all, and he really thinks it's a pile of boring crap. It's literally what he said, and that's fine, but I love it. It's high concept. It was a production that was just completely stressed from beginning to end, with a director who was fired and then rehired, with a script that was mashed about from its original intention. But on TV and in book form, it is a beautiful high concept Doctor Who story, and I absolutely love it, and it's really unique. And then things like Legopolis, which was in the same season, Castrovalve, I love, Earthshock, things like that. Caves of Androzani is probably my top Doctor Who story. Revelation of the Daleks. I could go on. There's a lot that I love. Maybe in the modern era, I think some of my favourite stories have probably been from Jodie's era. So things like It Takes You Away, which is another high concept sci-fi story, which again I absolutely just adore. Things like Can You Hear Me, The Power of the Doctor, just for its outrageous kind of out-and-out escapist Doctor Who indulgence, which I just love. I think it's one of the best finales, if not the best finale of the modern season. But then, of course, the modern era. But then, of course, you got things like World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls, which I also love. So that's enough from me on that question. Maybe let's go to you before I consume the entire podcast.
Well, yeah, you could talk about it all day. I mean...
we do. This is why we do the podcast, isn't it? It gives us a good excuse to indulge our favourite topic, Doctor Who.
I don't think that... I don't think there was a worst episode for me. I think any episode has something or multiple things to enjoy, the least of all being the Doctor.
Yes,
one.
this is true. The Doctor is always watchable.
Always a highlight. Yeah. So James, I may be going to dodge the utter worst, because I don't really feel like I have. There's episodes that I would, if I was asked to sit down and watch, pick any episode to watch, there'd be things I'd go for more than others. But also, I think sometimes it depends on the mood.
Yes, it does.
And
very true.
Some favourites are, I love the Demons with Pertwee, Moonbase with Troughton. I always really like. I've love Dalek with Eccleston. Midnight I think is superb. Trying to think with Capaldi, I always thought Listen was brilliant as well.
It's quite high concepts again, isn't it? And things like Last Christmas as well, which just
Last
really
Christmas,
unique. I love that one.
Said before, still like that episode is unbelievable. It went out on Christmas Day because it's so dark and twisted and but got Santa in it. It's mental. And then of course I love all of Jodie's stuff as well. So if I was being honest, my favourite episode would probably be the one from The Woman Who Fell to Earth through to The Power of the Doctor.
All of that episode.
Going on it being one long,
26-ish.
Yeah,
something like that. A bit more, 28,
like that,
29, something like that. Yeah.
So that, and then for books and comics and stuff as well, and audios
I
again.
didn't answer that part of it, did I?
Massive stuff. I mean, like books at Childhood's End that Sophie Aldred wrote was brilliant. I've always liked Forever Autumn, which was a 10th Doctor book. There's one, I think it's Prisoner of the Daleks, where Ten's on his own as well. That was a really good one. He's in jail there. And then audios, there's things like it's a 10th Doctor one. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's like maybe Last Broadcast or something, but it's done like a radio broadcast from a ship that's lost in the ocean or something like that, and it was kind of the last one in the 10th Doctor era, done by Tennant at the time, and that was brilliant. Really inventive use of audio on it. And then there's Night of the Troll, I think it's called, which is another one which was really good. It kind of had a kind of fantasy sort of element with a troll to it. And then from Big Finish, I've talked about Static before, which is a sixth Doctor one. And there's been a lot of great unit stuff as well. Anyway, this is turning into a really kind of comprehensive. No,
it is. And do you know,
answer.
Yeah, and I forgot about the whole novels and other media. So let me just answer that bit. So actually, there's a few of these behind me. So where is it? The Crusades. I love that. Or The Crusaders is the novelised version, isn't it? I think it's brilliant. And actually, all of those behind me, even the Zabi, I love, because I enjoy the Web Planet, but I think the book is even more of its time. That kind of 60s, sort of boys science fiction kind of thing. I wasn't around then, but just I would say I'm not that old, but I do remember reading this in sort of late 70s when I was quite young, and just really enjoying it. It's just written in a particular way. It's really old fashioned by today's standards, but the Crusades is fabulous. Anything written by David Whittaker is just astonishing in my opinion. But to be honest, I mean, probably all the Target novels are really, really special to me, and out of all the ones I've enjoyed, there are a few that stick out. Those three, the originals, things like pretty much anything by Terrance Dicks is amazing, and actually Ian Marter's version of The Ark in Space, which is pure alien-esque body horror. It's evil. It bears very little resemblance to the TV show. It follows the same lines, but if you ever read it, it's gross. No. It is literally like reading the novelization of Alien, right? It's the kind of wasp larva takes over Noah, and it's just gross, but it's brilliant. I love it. It's definitely not one for younger readers. And in the 8th Doctor range, things like actually none of those three on top there, they're good, they're great, but I think my favourite one is, or my favourite couple is probably Alien Bodies by Lawrence Mars, which just, I think, showed us what or how the format of telling a Doctor Who story could change, could evolve into something that was perhaps, I don't know, I'd say it's less traditional than things like the Crusaders and etc., and less traditional than anything that's gone. It's one of those stories that kind of mixes up its narrative. It mixes up the way it tells a story, and I always like that. Usually, if it's done well, I enjoy it. You know, I do enjoy books that go from A to Z and go A, B, C, D in sequence. It makes sense as long as they tell a great story. But Alien Bodies mixes it up. It probably starts at M, then goes back to C, then goes forward to Y, Z, and back to A, and sort of shifts around like that, and weaves in multiple different viewpoints and storylines that all kind of very nicely coalesce together. And it's also pretty high concept as well, and it treats the Doctor's body as a valuable trophy that is being fought over because Time Lord biology. Everyone wants to get their hands on it because they want to weaponize it. It's great, and it brings back an old foe from the past. And it's just, and I remember reading that thinking, this is the first time I probably read a Doctor Who novel since Legopolis that has really kind of just pulled me in so wonderfully. And I love it. I don't think it's ever been bettered, although various things are still really, really good. I love my Doctor Who novels, whether they're based on the show or completely original. But I prefer the ones that are based on a show mostly. Some of the original ones, leave a lot to be desired that I've read, but most are really good. So,
yeah, I like a lot of the novels. Probably the other way round on that.
Yeah, so I'm not always target audience for stuff. This is the thing, because Doctor Who can, it can appeal to so many different people, and it's written for so many different things. I love, if you get any idea, I love the more high concept, real, gritty, well, not gritty, but sci-fi. If there's a good science fiction element rather than a fantasy element, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do kind of like stuff that's written for younger readers, like The Zabi is written for younger readers, but I don't enjoy it so much now. I do like to be, I enjoy books that are written for a more adult rather than a younger generation. But when I was 9 or 10, that might have been different. Actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't actually, because I still read adult type books when I was younger. Maybe that's a big problem of why I am who I am. But as long as they tell a great story, that's fine. It's great.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter what medium it is.
Oh, really, comics, Tides of Time. Brilliant. It's awesome.
Yeah, the DWM 10th Doctor series, where he had a comic original companion, Magenta.
Oh yeah, she was good.
That was a good series. Yeah, and the Titan stuff has been really good. Some of the 12th Doctor stuff with Clara was great, and I liked. I think her name was it Gabby or Cindy that was the 10th Doctor's comic only companion, and that series started out really good before it kind of got a little bit kind of heavy, and I was talking about like block time computation or something like this.
Block transfer computations.
Yeah,
that's from Legopolis, if that's what it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, this is getting a bit.
Did it get a bit much for you, then, mate?
Yeah, it did a little bit. When you read something and you read a sentence and you're like, only two of those words actually are real words.
See, I love that sort of thing. I do.
You probably enjoy that.
I love it. Things that take actual science and then speculate and extrapolate and create something that is still fantasy and still magic, but because because the core of it is kind of grounded in what we know, I think it just makes it a little bit more exciting. To read about for me, but that's the sort of fiction I love when it does that.
Yeah, you'd probably like that series then. Yeah. Right, would you like to fire a Facebook?
Well, I was going to ask this one, which is staring me in the face, but given that this is another one that would probably be a big answer, I'm looking for something a little bit lighter. So here we go. I've just scrolled down a little bit to find a lighter one. So this is from our good friend Morgan Haynes. Right, now I do have a bone to pick with you, Morgan, on this question, but let me read the question first, and I will tell you exactly what that bone is, my friend. So Morgan says, I have a question for Jeff, firstly. Fine. What was your first U2 song that you heard? What was your first U2 song you heard? Okay. Hold on, wait, let me read the rest of it. Another question for Jeff. What was the first episode of Doctor Who that you watched? Question for Paul. Well, it's the same as Jeff's. Second question. What was your first episode of Doctor Who? Morgan, why aren't you interested in what my first U2 song was? I mean, it had a formative impact on me. You know, I like U2, maybe not as much as Jeff, but I'm disappointed.
On about
so
it
go on,
more than
you answer that. You answer. Let's do the U2 thing, because I'm going to tell you, Morgan, because it was quite a big experience for me, my first U2 song. So go on, Jeff, you first.
Well, I was probably 12 and maybe 13, and I was sitting in the car with my mum after school one day, waiting for my sister to come out, and the radio was on, and it was all staticky, bad signal.
Let me recreate.
And, not that bad a driver. And this song came through, and I thought, I've never heard anything like this before, and it was Numb.
I love that.
It had just come out, and it wasn't even Bono singing on it. It was Edge. And has this kind of drum, sort of, this very stylised drum beat, and then this guitar bit over it. It's like, bow, I feel numb. Yeah, and then Edge is just sort of semi. It's like a talking kind of rap over the top of it.
Speak,
don't talk, take out of time, just talk. And I thought, wow, what is this? And then I went to Town at the weekend.
Town. Jeff went to Town. Is that a capital T? It seemed to have one, the way you expressed it there. The way you emphasised.
Probably Our Price. Our Price.
I remember Our Price. My goodness, yeah.
It was a shop that sold music.
So, records, CDs and shit like that.
And I went in and bought the Zooropa CD, which I still have, and Achtung Baby, which had also been out a year or so before. And then I really got into them, and I remember being at school there, and people were like, who is it? Who is this band? And I think at that kind of age, it was quite weird listening to that sort of music.
When was that? Sort of early 90s, wasn't it?
It was like 93 probably. Whenever
Zooropa came out. The run-off from Achtung Baby.
Yeah, and most people at that sort of age Take That or novelty pop.
Spice Girls.
I remember all the girls crying when Take That.
I cried when Spice Girls released their first song. I thought, if this is the future of music, I want no part of it, thank you. I hated it, I'm sorry, I did.
So that was the first one. And what was the other question? What was my first?
What was the first episode? Well, I'll tell you what, shall I do my U2 experience, and then we'll come back to the second part of that question. So I think that's awesome, actually, because Numb is one of my favourite U2 songs, and Zooropa is one of my favourite U2 albums, and I love the fact that was your introduction to U2. That was your first extra. I didn't know that, actually, so I think that's great, because a lot of people, the stuff they did before that is kind of like the definitive U2, certainly of my generation. But I didn't really become a fan until they released Achtung Baby, and it was very different to anything that they'd done before.
Yes,
and I thought Zooropa was more of the same, equally brilliant, and then pop. After that, I kind of left them a little bit, if you like. But my first U2, or the first time I heard U2 do anything was Live Aid, and I'd never even heard of them before that. And I wasn't at Live Aid, sadly. I was a little bit too young, but I remember watching it on TV, and it consumed the whole day, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I just remember it was just that age where I was kind of in a good place. In my sort of early teens, what was I? When was it? 1980? Was it 84? I forget now. I'm sure it was.
Yeah, 85 maybe.
Yeah, okay. So I was 14. So gosh, that's awful, isn't it? I can't remember. It was such a great moment, and I can't remember the bloody Go on, Google it just in case we got it wrong. Anyway, so I remember watching Live Aid on the telly, and U2 came on and just blew everyone out the park.
85.
There you go, 85. Phew, 85, not 84. Yeah. Okay, So U2 came on and they blew everybody away. I think they had some fans in the crowd who'd known they were going to be there. But I think for most of the UK, actually, it was such a big wake-up, literally.
It was a big moment.
And I just remember, like you said, that the sound was so different. Yeah. And they played... What did they play? They played Sunday Bloody Sunday. They played Bad. Oh, my God, which went on forever. Well, and I didn't want it to end. I thought it was fantastic.
They were supposed to do... I think they were supposed to do Pride, because it was Unforgettable Fire album. and bad ended up just as it
just went on and on.
Does
and it just and they sort of riffed on it, and they improvised, and they just got the crowd, and I honestly, it was one of those songs I did not want it to end. I just loved watching Bono doing his thing, the guys doing their stuff, the sound of that, the whole that rippling bass line, the Edge's unique guitar string, all of that, and it was so tight and so spiritual. Oh man, it's brilliant. I loved that. Absolutely loved it.
Live Aid, kind of changed things for them, and
that really launched them, didn't it? I think
put them on the map in many ways for the bigger audience and stuff.
So that was good. But I didn't become a fan really until much later on, till the 90s with Acton Baby. That got me right into them. So there you go, Morgan. So slightly disappointed he didn't ask me about U2, but you see, I don't bang on about it as much as Jeff does, so that is fine. So what about the second half of Morgan's question then? What was your first, to quote, what was your first episode you watched of Doctor Who?
Well, I remember Silver Nemesis. Watching that, but I'm pretty sure I watched other McCoy stuff, and I remember seeing Davison bowling, playing cricket as well, and seeing some Tom Baker stuff as well. And we've talked about this before, and I think there must have been repeats or something, because I don't think I would have been watching them as they went out. At the time, so I must have caught some repeats or something. But I remember it. But I can vividly remember watching Silver Nemesis and thinking the Cybermen were really cool.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So was that literally your first Doctor Who that you recall properly watching?
That I can recall. Yeah.
Wow, that's mad, isn't it? It shows a bit of age difference between us, because I was a bit older then as well.
Yeah, yours was on Earthly Child.
Shut up. Don't be cheeky. No, it wasn't. It was like you. I have sort of snatches of things like the Ark in Space and the Brain of Morbius, but I again, they must have been repeats. At least I hope they were, because I would have been really young, I think. But they were really strong memories, just a horror, and maybe that's it. Maybe I was just a little toddler knocking around, and I saw a brain slap onto the floor, and some squirmy thing, some green bubble wrap taking over the Noah, the base commander's physical form in the Ark in Space, which freaked me out. And the wooden lava squirming in the... See, I'm talking about body horror, actually, in the novelisation of Ark in Space. It is there in the TV show. It's just not as quite as viscerally realised as it is with Ian Marter's spin on things. So, but I think my first... Yeah, I mean, I always caught snatches of Doctor Who. I never sat down and watched it, I think, as we might have said on the podcast before. But I always read the Target books. I loved the Target books, and I just devoured those, bought a few, and read most of them from the library. And I think the first time I actually really sat down and watched a Doctor Who story on the telly was probably Warrior's Gate, but I don't think I saw all of it. I think I caught it maybe partway through episode 1 or 2. And I just remember being captivated by that great white void and that image of the gate, that stone Gothic archway in the middle of this void, and sort of got a whiff of the science of it, and then watched Keeper of Traken afterwards, watched all of that. So that was probably the first full Doctor Who story I actually watched, from beginning to end. And then Legopolis, which I just loved, and then from that moment I was a kind of bona fide fan. So in between Tom Baker finishing and Peter Davison started, I kind of went through more, not so much the stories, because I knew the stories from the Target novels, but more like the back end of the show, the behind the scenes. And we went to Blackpool and Blackpool exhibition on holiday in that year, and I got my first ever Doctor Who magazine, and I kind of got a bit hooked more into, like I said, the history of the show and the making of the show and the stories and the writers and the directors, and got to really get into that as much as the stories. So that when Peter Davison started with Castrovalva, I was literally a fully bona fide fan. But in between then, also, we had the 5 Phases of Doctor Who, which was the first time I'd seen An Unearthly Child and the Crotons and the Three Doctors and Carnival of Monsters. They reran Legopolis as well, which I'd just kind of seen, so that was all cool. So that was a great introduction for a new fan. So someone who'd come through the show via the Target novels, caught various snatches of various episodes throughout the years. That moment, that year between, 1980, 1981, was what turned me into a fan. So by
Right.
By the time Peter Davison started, I'd hit the ground running, so to speak. So
That's good. Yeah.
And I was only young still, just to point that out. I was 10 or something. I don't know. Yeah. Thank you for that question, Morgan. That's a good one. I will forgive you for not including me in your first bit. But back to you, Jeff. What else have you got?
Okay. Right, hit me with a Facebook.
Okay, right. Okay, let's go. I'm going to go back to that one that I missed at the top. So this is from the Ginger Geek Show. Now, this one does...
This is a
really good question, actually. And I've been thinking about this, and I think I have an answer, so we'll see. But, Jeff, if either... Well, it's what the Ginger Geek Show asks us. If either of you were showrunners, you had all the money for the show, can bring any writer or director, what would you do? Who would be your Doctor? What tone or style would you have? I kind of get the feeling, actually, our answers might be similar on this, Jeff, but let's see. Go on,
really?
You first.
I would have James Cameron make Jodie's Doctor go on an epic multi-part adventure similar to Flux, written by Cameron, Chibnall.
It's like a fantasy football team or something, isn't it?
Pete McTeague.
McTeague? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Is it Pete McTighe? I don't know.
Pete McTighe. Whatever. Anyway, him. One. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And who else would I get in? Maybe Vinay Patel. He did some, like, he could bring the sort of emotional part to it. And what would the story be? I don't know.
What tone or style would you have?
Tone. I think it would be sort of. Actually, it could vary from episode to episode a little bit, a bit like Flux did actually. So you could have a bit of sort of alien style stuff like we have with Orphan 55. So essentially it would be Flux on steroids probably, that sort of massive thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
How about you?
Me? Well, actually, totally different from you. No. Actually, no, do you know what? I never thought of James Cameron as directing Doctor Who, but that would be brilliant, wouldn't it? It'd be ideal for that,
Or maybe you could do a guest director.
Yeah, one a season or something.
So, so you could maybe have like Tim Burton do one. And it could be a bit more kind of spooky, weird.
Yes.
Or Guillermo del Toro could do something. And that could be
get one proper, full-on A-list director to take a two-part or something.
Episode, two-parter, yeah.
That would be cool, yeah. But I can just imagine a sort of James Cameron thing that I'd like to see would be, like when he does giant mechs, and you see the way they shine lights, and the lights shaft through this fog. There's always a fog because it really highlights the lasers, and he always uses blue lasers as well, doesn't he? Because they got that kind of cold, clinical, So when Cameron does mechs and machines and stuff like that, I would just want a story that had all of that. Basically, just thrown in. Don't care what the story is. Just give me loads of mechs, directed by James Cameron. It's robots, everything. Just pile it on. I would also love to have some really, again, because it's my stuff. I'd love some real high concept sci-fi in there, written by somebody who we've never heard of, which I think would be great. I think it's. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, I'm a big fan of people like Peter Hamilton and Alistair Reynolds, those sort of guys who do that sort of thing, and I love the Expanse series, the Leviathan books and Expanse TV show, which isn't really high concepts, but it's really cool spaceships. So I love all of that. So I would love to have Doctor Who go more in a sci-fi, real proper, what I call proper sci-fi direction, real hardcore sci-fi. But within that, I would love to have a lot of the spooky stuff. One of my favourite Doctor Who stories is the Android Invasion, and also Terror of the Zygons and the Demons, which you said as well. And what those three stories have in common is that English village, where something isn't quite right, which is a big deal in the 70s with all the sort of Tales of the Unexpected and Hammer House of Horror TV series, and things like that. There was always, and the Wicker Man and things like that. Yeah. So I love those sort of stories as well. And I would have something, and that would be ideal for Tim Burton or Guillermo del Toro, that sort of stuff. So I never thought of getting those guys in. I kind of say I'd like to get Ridley Scott in, but I feel like he'd probably upset everybody. So maybe not. He'd probably shout and be really rude to people. And, I'm sure what he turned out would be brilliant, but whoever would probably never want to work with me again. So maybe avoid that. But that's kind of what I would love. A great, I don't know, just a great space opera style. Yeah. Or maybe something more like Ian Banks, where it's more character led perhaps, but it happens on this grand stage. And But I would also want something really funny and ridiculous as well.
Yeah,
I'd mix it up.
Part of the show.
Yeah.
Okay, a bit different.
Who would be your doctor though? Oh, you said everyone. Jodie. I don't know. I just want somebody new. I think let's experiment with a new doctor.
All that, Okay, if it was going to be someone else doing it, I'd maybe have maybe Hayley Atwell would be good.
You don't say that because you fancy her.
No.
But you do though, don't you? You do though. Yeah, he does. He really does. Honestly. But no, she could be cool, I think. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'd like to see an American doctor, actually. An American actor play the Doctor. I really would. I don't care. This whole thing about Doctor Who is existentially British or quintessentially British, and it may have began that way, but I don't think it is. I would like to see it be more global or more universal. Than that. So I think I'd love to see or a non-British actor, perhaps, but maybe I think someone with a good American accent and heritage. And I don't know why, actually. It's just a weird thing, but I just to kind of break the idea of Doctor Who being quintessentially British, blah blah blah. So.
Yeah, and it isn't really like that anyway.
Well, no, as we said with Jason Quinn, Doctor Who magazine editor. He sees Doctor Who more in the style of some of those Korean dramas, the K-pop dramas. He said, didn't he? Whether it's called, I forgot what it's called now, but that one. That was really popular.
Sort of, like
Squid Games. That was it. I knew it began with an S. Couldn't think about
heightened, the heightened drama and the humour at the same time.
And I think as long as Doctor Who is always thought of as quintessentially British, it'll always be regarded perhaps as niche by certain people, and maybe it always would be. But that sort of labelling doesn't help. And Doctor Who does reach a much wider audience now. It's far more global than it ever used to be. And I think that should be celebrated and reflected back in the programme. So
okay, interesting. Right, question here from Chris on Twitter at Chris+1. So just a quick one here. Apart from Marvel or Avatar, what are some of your favourite films? My answer is, does anything else exist?
Well, it does, because you have a lot of favourite films. I know you do. Most of them directed by James Cameron, I believe.
Yeah. Does anyone else make anything? I mean, for me, I love the Mission Impossible films.
What's your favourite Mission Impossible film?
Either Fallout or
I haven't seen that
Dead
one yet.
Reckoning.
I have seen Fallout. Dead Reckoning, that's a new one, isn't it? I haven't seen that yet.
I mean, for me, they get better as they go along. Fallout has probably got slightly bigger sort of action stuff, but Dead Reckoning has got Hayley Atwell and Pom Klementif in it, being great characters. So that one probably, for the characters in it, slightly takes the spot for me. I love Cameron's films. I like a lot of old Disney films as well. Stuff like which is not Disney, but It's a Wonderful Life. I like the old Universal, monster films as well. I like those. I like the John Wick films a lot.
Do you?
I don't tend to get kind of too. I'm not a sort of I love the Goonies or anything like that. That's a good film, but I'm not a kind of massive.
You're not obsessive about it.
and like Back to the Future, it's good, but I kind of can, take it or leave it sort of thing. So I tend to have, slightly more, I was going to say modern films, but that's not really true. But I'm not. A lot of people kind of my age, like they like Pulp Fiction or Trainspotting or the Goonies and stuff, and I'm not not bothered about.
You're not fussed for that
sort of stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
What was it? Top favourite films?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, my all-time favourite films probably they haven't really changed that much over the years. I think I first did my list of favourite films, I don't know, when I was 20 something, and it hasn't really changed much. Right. They are mostly sci-fi. I'm not going to lie. I do like other films. I do watch a lot of other stuff, but nothing excites me quite the way that a really good sci-fi film does. So my all-time favourite sci-fi is Blade Runner. I just love it. Again, it's on the surface it's a kind of future noirish Raymond Chandler-esque type story, but it takes its source for that story from the Philip K. Dick book Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a real treatment of what it means to be human, and it's and what it means to be human at the end of the world, basically, when everything has been destroyed and nothing that exists is real. Really, it's all fake. But then what's the difference between something that's simulated and reality anyway? Your experience of it is the same, and you get people who are trying to almost invent experiences so that they can feel some sort of connection to humanity and the world and the universe and God through whatever that experience is. But what the film does is it turns it on its head. It becomes less nihilistic and more positive, more hopeful through these androids, which are there in the novel. But the androids are kind of trying to ask themselves that same question: what does it mean to be human? So the emphasis shifts kind of slightly. But then there's also that thing about Rick Deckard, Harrison's Ford character: is he real? Is he not real? And there's no definitive answer given. I think Ridley Scott has said at some point that Rick Deckard is definitely a replicant, an android. But it's never really explained in the film. You're given lots of clues, but not definitive. It's up to you to kind of make it. So I love stories that, I mean, I've watched it like 20, 30 times. I don't know how many times. Right. And I still enjoy it as much as I did almost the first time round. In fact, the first time I watched it, I actually fell asleep. It took me a few goes to watch it, to actually stay awake through the whole thing. And at the weekend, I watched Blade Runner 2049, which is not quite the same. But I still love it. If that existed on its own without the first film, it would probably be one of my number one films. So it's extraordinary. And I love things like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I just, again, another one I can watch. All the high concept stuff. Still can't quite figure out the end, but I think I've got it. And then on the other hand, I just love the Star Wars movies. For the pure sheer escapist fun, and I remember going to see Star Wars in 1977. I'm really, really young, and I think I've said on a podcast before, it just changed my life. It really got me. It was so dynamic and so just so energetic and so pacey. I don't think anyone had seen anything like that before. Again, I'd caught glimpses of sci-fi films that were things like Soylent Green, which I love, and Planet of the Apes, which I also love. But and Silent Running, which actually might have been after Star Wars, but I can't remember. But I love that one as well. That's another great sci-fi film, full of heart. But I think my top non-sci-fi movie is probably With Nail and I, with Paul McGann and Richard E. Grant, which I can just watch endlessly. It's my comfort film. If I can't deal with Blade Runner, or I'm not in the mood for Star Wars or Star Trek or any of that stuff, I do like The Wrath of Khan as well. That's another one of my top movies. But I would usually stick With Nail and I on, because it's just beautiful film. For those of you who've seen it, you'll know why it's so great. It's difficult to explain. It's just, and I don't think everybody gets it. It's like, what's the deal about this? It's really coarse. It's really sweary. Richard E. Grant. I mean, both of them are just brilliant in the whole thing. But it's such a wonderful, beautiful, human story that is just so full of fun. And I think it's just go watch it. I'm not going to explain it. Just go watch it. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a treat. That's all I will say. So yeah, there you go. There's a few for the mix. I've just got to say, actually, apologies to Eleanor Jodie Alashevsky, who also asked us what was the first Doctor Who story that we saw. So apologies, Eleanor. I missed that one. I went straight to Morgan's question.
we had a couple of.
We did have a few, didn't we?
Yeah. Okay, give me a Facebook one.
Okay, right. So, so here's one. This is from Rebecca Lim on Facebook, who asks, has Doctor Who helped you through a challenging time, and is there an episode or quote that might help others if they are going through a challenging time? So we're getting deep now. We're at that point in the show we can go deep. I feel we're at that stage.
That's a good question. Well, I suppose Doctor Who has has been there for for you for longer.
Just be careful what you say there, Sunshine.
But what I mean is you were watching, younger than when I started. But certainly with New Who, it's been here for nearly 20 years now, which is kind of half my time. So it's always been there. Largely consistently across that time. But as it's sort of been there, I mean, I always go on about it, but I take a lot of enjoyment and comfort watching Jodie's stuff back. There's a quote there from Spyfall about darkness not sustaining, which I think is a lovely little quote and kind of sums up, in many ways her, kind of hopeful optimism. But it came along just before the pandemic and everything started, and then it kind of became a bit more, kind of came back out again, during all of that, and around the time of the cupboard video that she did as well, and I think that was a really kind of, became a very appropriate and fitting comment. We were in a awful place, and nobody knew what was going to happen and everything, but the Doctor was there to say, basically, keep the hope and things will get better, and I thought that was something quite powerful there. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's, well, I don't know. I think as to the first part of that question, has it helped you through challenging times? I think it's yes. In the way that it's been a kind of escapist thing. I'd always kind of read my Target books and get quite lost in those worlds when I was quite young, because my childhood wasn't a great period of time for various reasons which I won't go into. So Doctor Who and various other sort of sci-fi and escapist books, I could just kind of get lost in those and spend time with my friends and stuff like that. So it was always good to have that when everything else seemed quite bleak and quite dark at points. And I think, Doctor Who is really good at that, because I think at its core, like you said, there is something very hopeful about it. At the end of the day, it's about somebody who is always the person who will do something about something. And that's something that is always quite difficult for us to do sometimes. We can get so lost in our own worlds that, we can say, it was like, well, what's the point of doing anything? Nobody listens, nobody stands up. But I think what the Doctor shows us is that, if we do stand up, we can get noticed. We can change things if enough of us stand up. And sometimes all it needs is one spark, is just one agent to kind of just stand up and say, this isn't right, or this is wrong, or we need this to be recognised. Whatever it is. And I think at its core, Doctor Who is really strong with that in standing up for what is right. What is existentially humanitarianly, if that's a word, the right thing to do. The morals within Doctor Who, are at their core very, very strong. So anything which kind of puts that forward is great. I mean, the 12th Doctor's speech, which is a kind of summation of Terence Dix's idea about the Doctor, which is never be cruel, never be cowardly, always trying to be kind. I think that, that whole speech is brilliant. I mean, and there's great things that, that the Fourth Doctor said as well. So what is it? There's no point in being grown up if you can't act childish sometimes. And
13 had something like that. Never been a fan of growing up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I think you're right.
Don't lose that thing that you loved as a kid. It still exists within you. Still reach into it and feel it and let it take you sometimes. You can do that.
And I think that's really important to to do that, and you're right. I think the Doctor essentially is quite a morally right, true character, and will do the right thing, a bit like Captain America in some ways, standing up for the underdog and trying to do the right thing all the time, and I think it's it's not a bad way to, well, a bad role model.
Exactly,
really,
that's what I think.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Come on in. Another one from X.
Right.
Should we start calling it X now instead of Twitter? I mean, Elon, bless him, has been trying to get us to do this for ages now. Should we?
Yeah, but then he'll be trying to get us to have his Neuralink thing put in.
Yeah.
He can do one with that.
Oh, dear.
Like being human. Right. Randy at Alain, I hope I said that right, Randy, at Mr_Alain says, as far as I can tell, Doctor Who hit the peak of its US popularity around the 50th anniversary, and a lot of big hype around Matt and Karen. As long-time fans, do you feel that the wider global hype has made the show feel different in any positive or negative ways?
That's a good question.
It was fun, seeing it kind of get bigger over there, and seeing it on the front of like Entertainment Weekly and TV Guide and stuff, which are two kind of really big US, entertainment publications. Most households get TV Guide, delivered to them every week and stuff. And when Matt was on the front of that, maybe he was on the front with Jenna for Entertainment Weekly, but maybe with Karen as well prior to that. I can't remember. But anyway, I thought about it arriving at my friend's house in America and them having it. And they did New York Comic Con, and then with Peter and Jenna they did the global tour, to Brazil and Australia and stuff like that. And I liked seeing it get bigger, and I think it's a great show. It's our show, but the more people that get to experience it and enjoy it, the better, and also the better it is for the show as a thing, because the more audience there is, the more people who are watching it, investing in it, and all of that, the longer a life it will have. I mean, there's a thing like, you might discover a band and they've got a smallish following and stuff, and then they start to get bigger, and sometimes people turn against them when they get bigger. They don't want to lose them, and there is an element, like I really like a band called Against the Current, for example, and they're not massive, and they tour and they sell out and they do well and they do globally and all that, but they're at a level at the moment where you can do a meet and greet with them and stuff, and and that's fantastic, but I'd like them to get bigger, but I know that then you'd lose that sort of access to them at the same time. So, but I would never resent them for, becoming bigger and, achieving, what they're capable of, sort of thing, So, yeah, with Who, I think it was great that it, had that bigger audience, and hopefully it will continue to grow now with Disney behind it.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm of the same opinion, actually, and I think it's strange because when something is relatively small and you're a fan of it, you feel a very strong ownership towards it. You're part of what's helping make this thing grow and reach a wider audience. And then when it does reach that wider audience, and then it has to change to cater and appeal more to that audience, which is from more diverse range of people, then it can evolve and probably will become something different or slightly evolved from what you first invested so much of your time and love in. So that is a weird kind of feeling. But I'm not sure I've really felt that's happened with Doctor Who for me, my experience. There is, I mean, I guess I do think there is I was going to say a bit of a dividing line between the old classic series and the new series, but there isn't, because there's a nice buffer in between. What we saw at the end of Sylvester McCoy's era and what we got with Rose, actually, it's not that different at all. And it does have more energy, and I think that the modern series has a lot more pace to it. The episode format is different usually, but essentially at its core, it's still the same show, and I still feel as much love towards it. I mean, I don't have the nostalgic attachment that I have, to the new series, the modern series as I do to the classic series. But I'm sure a lot of our younger listeners probably don't have the nostalgic attachment to what we're seeing now as to what they had with Russell T Davis's first iteration of the show, which is, when they first experienced it. So I think that does make things stronger and does make things feel a little bit different. So usually, for my sort of comfort, if I'm going to watch a Doctor Who story, I'd probably stick on an older one rather than a new one, a classic series rather than a new series. But I kind of enjoy them equally. I don't think there's any real major difference, because the show always changes anyway. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. And like you, I love the fact it now reaches a global audience. So I don't think the fact it's reached a global audience has changed it significantly. I think it does appeal to a more diverse, more global audience, but I think it has to anyway. And I think it always sort of has aspired to do that, but never quite reached it, because everyone's, in the old days in the 70s, I think it was sold to Australia and it was sold to PBS in the States, I think, but they never reached a wide audience on either of those and various other places around the world. And I think part of that was because of the Britishness of it, or the assumed Britishness of it. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's the same show. It feels like it as well. Yes, it's a little bit more glossy perhaps than it used to be. Perhaps the special effects are better, but actually, I don't know. It's because
I think it's still the same show.
It's the same but different, but it's always been the same but different. If you look at Series 1 back with William Hartnell, it's very different to Patrick Troughton's first season. It's very different, actually, to William Hartnell's last season, which is kind of the overlap anyway, but and it's very different again to Pertwee's first season, which is very different to Pertwee's second season, which is different to his last season and Tom Baker's first, and so on and so on. It's always changing, always evolving. So I don't think it suddenly reaching a global audience is massively responsible for any change. No. Particularly,
no, I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, maybe the program makers are more aware that they have to appeal to a more global audience, so it might affect some of their casting decisions. Perhaps I don't know. It's
maybe,
interesting.
But I don't think that's
or that we have to set an episode in America like they did with the Impossible Astronaut. To kind of bring those guys on board, make them feel represented or something. But I don't know. I mean, Jodie's episodes. I mean, they were filming in Spain, they were filming in South Africa, and not necessarily for those markets, but because they're great locations with big sweeping vistas.
They could,
until COVID hit. But now we're back in Cardiff, which is fine.
We
were in Cardiff anyway, weren't we? I suppose, but it's nice to go beyond those confines. So in that way, I think certain parts of it felt slightly different, maybe, but interesting.
So, question here from Tranquilo Wolf, aka Chris, who's one of our magic pals.
Hi, Chris.
Do you think the Whoniverse should just be a television-based expanded universe, or do you think there's any value in properly tied-in comics, audios, and video games, or has the well been poisoned by events like Doomsday?
He slipped that one in, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I did not do Doomsday because I thought you've created a new character here that I have no investment or anything in. Why am I going to go and buy all this stuff and do all of that? And that's not to say that a new characters come out all the time. You don't know about them because they're new, and you go, I'll go buy that book or watch that film or whatever. But I think for me, Doomsday kind of, we've talked about this before. I did not buy that she was the universe's greatest assassin, and I know, she's a bit funny and a bit goofy, and that's how she lures you in. It doesn't work for me. And I think after Time Lord Victorious, which was a whole bunch of books and audios and blah blah blah, and really to get it, you only needed to read 2 books. That doesn't work for me, although I will be a hypocrite and say we were robbed of a Multimedia 13 extravaganza,
Indeed,
which I would have eaten up.
I was quite surprised to learn that, weren't we, with we interview with Esme.
But of course, that still could have been, not...
Well, maybe that's why it folded. Maybe it just, I don't know, the idea perhaps wasn't strong enough, or they couldn't support it in the right way, or they didn't feel it was...
Yes, possibly.
Who knows?
Like Time Lord Victorious, like the individual elements of it were good, but I think it's just this. becomes these massive things, and like it happened with Doomsday, or do I have to read this book, and
Yeah,
do I need to
I
do
think
that,
it's
play
asking a lot,
this
isn't it?
app game as well? And it's asking a lot. At least with Time Lord Victorious, you didn't have to kind of do everything to kind of get the bulk of it. But as to answer, do I think it should be an expanded universe? Yes, I think, you know, Doctor Who is a property, an IP that can. It's going to be sick in my mouth.
Well, you said it. No one else. I wasn't going to say that.
I didn't. You know, it can benefit and work with books and comics and audios and stuff, and I think that's great. I'm not sure we need to be doing, you know, making it all kind of connected into the show in such a way that you have to read all of it. It's like with Marvel comics. So, you know, I get a bit annoyed when you get 2 or 3 issues of Spider-Man, and then you get 3 or 4 issues that are kind of connected to a bigger event that they're running that summer. And then you go back to, you know, the Spidey series, and, you know, they don't seem to do it as much now, but it used to annoy me because you get 12 issues a year, and then a third of them get taken up with the event tie-in, and that's not what I want, you know. So, yeah, I think, you know, expanded Who media, lovely, but I'm not sure that it should tie in, like, you know, be essential like that.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you, actually. I mean, my favourite way of experiencing Doctor Who is in books and on TV. That's it. I love the comics, but I don't love all the comics. You know, there's a handful of the old DWM comics that I really enjoy, others that I enjoy to a much lesser extent. You know, and I can sort of take or leave them mostly. But give me the TV show over everything all the time. If if they only had to pick one way for the show to continue, it would have to be on TV. And because I think if we lost that, we would lose everything about it. Because I think the TV show still encapsulates the perfect form of Doctor Who to me. Now, that doesn't mean to say that any other media is less, you know, is less important or less valuable, perhaps. And I think certainly as we start to experience all of our stuff in many different ways, and certainly, you know, my kids coming up, the Gen Zs, they, you know, the so-called TikTok generation, I mean, they absorb media constantly in lots of different ways, often at the same time. So, you know, Freya will be watching a TikTok while she's watching football on a telly or something, you know, and she'll have like multiple tabs open on her phone where she'll be flicking through one thing and another. And I actually do find myself doing that to a degree as well. So, you know, I think these behaviour patterns are gonna change, and I think anything has to somehow find its way to be visible across multiple different platforms. But I think, like you said, actually, and like Chris is maybe insinuating, the way not to do it is maybe something like Doomsday, which is whereby you have a completely new character that suddenly we are expected to understand and follow and get to know over lots of different media. So to understand the full story, you've got to invest in all of those different things. It's kind of like, you know, I mean, it's a question that has been that is floating around the corporate world, because I get asked this a lot in you know, my sort of day job is, you know, from businesses, like how do we make our presence felt across all these different platforms in all this different media? And I think TV, you know, or things like Doctor Who, Star Wars, Marvel Universe, all of that stuff is actually asking itself the same question. I think the advantage it has is that it already exists in different media and has done for many years. As soon as William Hartnell was a Doctor, there was a Doctor Who comic strip. You know, there was all sorts of other things, you know, that been made use of. He was on the back of Weetabix packets, for goodness sake. So, you know, it's always going to find its way through these. But I think it's one to investigate, but it's not something that should be forced. I felt that Doomsday was kind of forced, and I felt the same with Time Lord Victorious. I didn't invest in that at all. You know, I almost deliberately shunned it. You know, I'm like, people are telling me, and I'm like, you'll know, Jeff, you tell me you'll go watch something, and I will not watch it. So you have to use reverse psychology on me. You know, say, don't watch this, Paul, you'll hate it, and I'll probably watch it then, because then I'll probably want to support the underdog. So that's the way to get through anything. And I just think actually that businesses and, you know, marketing people have to be a little bit more clever about how they do these things. And it's fine if you look at Doomsday and TLV as a sort of experiment in finding the right way. But I think you've got to, at the end of it, you've just got to answer the simple question: understand your audience, know who your audience are, what their behaviour patterns are, and what they respond to, and where they inhabit. So if 98% of your audience actually experiences Doctor Who on TV, that's where you need to invest it. Because that 2% isn't going to make the blindest bit of difference to the direction of the show. Don't invest 98% of your funds into 2% of your target audience. It's just that sort of simple thing. So, but if that changes and it becomes more 50-50, so 50% of people only experience it through comics and audios and other media or whatever, then you maybe need to look at that, but that doesn't mean to say. But even that is still 50% is the TV show. So 50% on the TV show and 50% split through lots of other different media. I don't know what the stats are, but that's what you got to do. You got to look at those things and understand your audience, understand their behaviour patterns, how they're experiencing your media, and what you want to show them through it. And once you've got the answer to that, if you do want to put something through that media, think what is the best way to use it. Each different platform has its own advantages. So you create something for that, something which uses the advantages of, say, TikTok or social media, Twitter and Facebook and what have you, or streaming in its best way. So it can only really be experienced in that way, and to do it in that way gives it the best possible experience, right? It's better for your viewers, for your audience. You can't just shove a comic strip online and hope it's going to be great. Because it's a comic strip, and comic strips work best as physical media, usually. You do them online, but it's a different experience. So if you are going to create your comic for online, make sure it's suited for online viewing, that it uses the best advantages that online has. Same if you do it in print, use the print as your advantage. So all those things, they're quite simple, but don't force it down our throats. That's the thing, Understand your audience. There you go. That's my answer. Yeah, people usually pay for that shit. I get money for that.
I was say, that's some quite good marketing advice there. Yeah,
that's what I do, man. I know. Contact me on my website. Dear, got to laugh.
Okay, so I've got a question from Fraser Gregory on Twitter here, who's at Felix Fraser.
Let me guess what question this is.
No? Fraser has mixed it up here.
No, really?
Yeah, yes,
Good old Fraser.
It
keeps us on our toes.
The question here is, what's the difference between a goblin and a hobgoblin? Now, I will... I don't know.
It's two different beers, isn't it?
Well, probably, yeah. So James H., who posed a question to us earlier, he said, one eats you raw, the other cooks you first, which is quite interesting. Okay. I replied already on Twitter, one wears a green and purple suit, the other wears a more orange suit with a hood.
I see where this is going.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So Green Goblin and Hobgoblin there from Spider-Man, if you didn't know. And then Lucy McCall, who has written a couple of our writer, chipped in with, in that case, quarks or protons, which, disrupted time and space and things, because normally that's Fraser Gregory's question.
Wait, so what she asked, quarks or crotons?
Yeah.
I thought you said quarks or protons, which I thought was a slightly different thing there.
She's gone from
subatomic.
Cheese-based products. Is that what quark is? And protons.
No, that's corn.
No, there is a thing called quark.
Is there a quark?
I don't know.
Cheese?
It's like it's
quark
a bit like
cheese.
Creme fraiche. I'm going to look it up.
Creme fraiche.
Because whatever.
Quark, the cheese for those special occasions that you never thought you knew. Yes, Quark. Buy it now. Our super cheese made by Quarks. It's Quark. Get it while it's still fresh, because it doesn't last long. Guaranteed to grow mold in only 1 hour. Please, not to be used for human consumption.
Quark is a dairy product made from milk, unsurprisingly. The milk is soured. Yeah. Usually by adding lactic acid bacteria cultures. And also, according to Wikipedia, quark is a type of elementary particle and a fundamental constituent
of matter. Yes, it is. That's why I said we go in subatomic.
Oh, I see. Well, I was thinking more of the dairy-based products.
Oh, it's one of those days. There you go.
So anyway,
I was trying to be clever there when you said quarks or
you
protons.
were.
I thought that's the direction we were going in there. Yeah,
possibly, and it's gone right over my head.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between a goblin and a hobgoblin?
Let's find our level.
I did hear
right?
you say that.
Let's
by the way.
find our level right now. So one wears purple, one wears green. Is that it? Yeah.
No, one wears purple and green, which is Norman Osborn hobgoblin, green goblin, and the other one wears a hood and a more orange suit, the hobgoblin, who I think is different people have taken on a persona over the years, but I'm sure Fraser's meaning a goblin or hobgoblin, the likes of which you'd get in Labyrinth or something.
Anyway, thanks for the question, Fraser. That's amazing, mate.
Oh.
Well done. Love that one.
Or maybe he means they've got like the Goblin King. I don't know. But maybe he knows something we don't. So anyway, thanks for that. Another question here.
Yes.
Well, there's two actually from Jason, who's at Jason Doctor Who. The first one said, why didn't the 12th Doctor give Clara the same life-prolonging Maya medical tech he gave Ashilda in The Girl Who Died?
No.
This would have gifted his companion the same technical immortality he gave Ashilda. Now, that's a very good question, Jason. It's actually quite deeply upsetting because if he, as a Clara fan, if he'd done that, then we wouldn't have had to face the Raven. It would have just bounced off her and carried on. So I'm going to basically ignore that question because of the deeply upsetting possibilities it raises. But it is a very good question, and I like your thinking.
I would hate to see you upset, Jeff. I would hate to see you dissolve into a pool of salty tears,
tears.
I'm not sure I can bear the pain of watching that happen.
I'm not sure I could bear the pain of doing it.
But yeah. Why did
so
you do that? Because that would kind of make sense.
It's a very good point. He's got a good question.
I mean, saying that, there's lots of other things within Doctor Who, I suppose, that you could aim something similar at, couldn't you? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think with
what, like, why didn't the Fifth Doctor actually go back in time to save Adric at the end of Earthshock when he's, he literally did it at the end of Fires of Pompeii for Caecilius and Fan?
I think if you
maybe if Adric was a little bit more likable,
he might have made the effort. Yeah.
I think, oh, thank Christ, this guy.
I think you can look at, many narrative things, and if you really wanted to, you could start really questioning things, pulling it apart, and making everything not work, and maybe that's fun for some people. But
I think the thing is, I mean, for me, possibly Jason's probably in this sort of category at all. In this category as well, is that story is everything, and the best stories depend on consistency, and whilst Doctor Who stories generally within themselves have a consistency of logic and narrative events and everything else and character, usually, that doesn't apply to all of them, I think over a period of time, that doesn't happen in Doctor Who. Like we said before, there's no show Bible, and continuity is kind of a bonus, really. Having said that, we're only talking in the space of a season or so, aren't we? Although the Ashilda stuff was series 10, wasn't it? And the Clara stuff was series 9.
No, Ashilda was in series 9.
Was she in series 9? She was in series 9. Yes, because obviously she was, because they ran off to each other. So actually, within the same season...
No, she was in series 8. Sorry, she was series 8. So yeah, he could have given it to her and prevented the Face the Raven stuff happening. But I sometimes wonder if someone had mentioned something
they were both
online.
in series 9. I'm sure they were. Think about it now. Hold on.
No, she wasn't.
They're both series 9, by the way. The girl who lived, the woman who lived, girl who died, Heaven Sent, Face the Raven, all of that is all series 9. So actually, I think Jason raises a good point there.
He does raise a good point. Yeah, it's a good question, and also, they're only people as well, and some smart ass go, oh, hang on. I'm not saying Jason's
yes, you are.
Ass, but I didn't mean it that way.
That, Jason.
But someone says, what if this happened? And it's a really good question, but Moffat and the execs and stuff, they didn't pop into their head, so
they had other things on their mind.
Yeah, so it's you can come up with things that pull stuff apart.
I'm pretty sure if we asked
other people won't have thought of.
No,
he'll have a response.
Yeah, and it would be a response as well.
Yeah, he'd have a good answer
in his amicable way. But I think, I think. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say there. But there's a thing about writing a good story, and sometimes the story requires a little bit of flex. I mean, I love. We're going to talk about this in some detail, aren't we? So I love the whole trilogy at the end of that season. Face the Raven, Heaven Sent, Hellbent. I love how it works. And it would have completely been undone if the magic button had been employed in that way, in those, I think, because the whole tragedy of Clara's fate is, well, sort of tragic. We'll get to it when we talk about it. We
will.
It's a good question, actually, and if we'd done a little bit more research before we answered it, we'd have realised that it's all season 9. That's series 9.
Sorry, I was sure it was season 8, but there you go.
Yeah. Anyway.
Right, I've got a question from Facebook here, and then you can have the big one. So this one is from Stephen Bird, who says, if you had to go back and change the ending to one single episode of Who, what would it be and why? I would have it that Power of the Doctor didn't end with a regeneration. For various reasons, but I would also like to see how the Power of 3 was supposed to end, because that one is sort of infamous for grumpy co-star causing problems and things having to be rewritten to accommodate for some minimal footage that had been obtained with the guy. So that would be quite interesting. But and then I don't think I'd change anything. I think whether you like something or not, I kind of feel that a writer has set out to do something, and that should be respected. Going that's wrong what they've done. It's not wrong. It's what they wanted, but you may not agree with it. So I don't feel like there's anything I'd change other than maybe allowing the show 5 more minutes on some episodes to fully explore things a bit more. How about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of that. I was thinking about this question over the weekend, actually, and I did have one. I've forgotten what it was now, but typically I should have written it down because I thought, oh yes, there is that one. Yeah, that could have.
Was it that
I guess
it wasn't a moon egg in Kill the Moon?
No. I mean, it's like you said, it's out there, isn't it? Just because I don't particularly like it doesn't give me the right to kind of.
It's someone else's.
Go back and redo the script in the way that I think it should have been written. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. And I know that's not what what the question is about. It's just a thing. So in that mode, I would probably. I mean, I remember where I was going with this now. So I remembered that. Some of the companion endings in the old series, in the classic series, were a little bit sudden. So if I was going to change anything, I would like to kind of make those a little bit more layered and a bit more emotive, perhaps. But then that's not really changing the ending, because I'd keep the ending in place. So, when we see the end of Romana walking away in Warrior's Gate, she's still going to walk away at the end of Warrior's Gate, and probably in the same way, but maybe it would be actually, because it's the reverse of this question, it's maybe changing what happens before that slightly, just to maybe kind of layer some of that stuff in. And I think there's probably a whole bunch of Russell T Davies authored stories that I would change the ending of, purely because a lot of them end very suddenly, and it's like, well, where did that come from? It's like the hand of God thing, the Deus Ex Machina kind of ending.
Yeah, which, that's why an extra 5 minutes.
I mean, again, I'm not going to question Russell's writing, and he'd tell me to go do one if I ever did, and that's fine. But it's, I just think you could kind of give us a little bit more than that, maybe. And saying that, I can't actually think of a specific example now. I think I did when I was thinking about this the other day, so it suddenly occurred to me.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd change particularly.
No, I remember what it was. I remember exactly what it was. Now, there is one ending I would change, actually, and it's actually the most recent episode, The Church on Ruby Road. And all of it is fine. And I think I said this on the podcast as well, but the very end, the coda, the epilogue at the end, when we see Mrs. Flood saying, "What, you never seen the TARDIS before?"
Oh yeah,
right.
And
I would either
she
delete
breaks
that
the fourth
entirely,
wall.
or I would at the very least change the music, because when I watched it the second time, I thought, watched the third time actually, it's like, because it's like it's like a mid-credit sequence, isn't it? So you get that, and that stops, right? Then we go dun 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 dun. It's the Murray Gold music. The incidental music for that is just outrageously OTT. What the actual is that all about? And that's it. I would strike out that incidental music, just keep it quiet or something reasonably ominous.
I would have had her not look at the camera because it doesn't work.
And that.
You know, that's weird unless there's a reason for it.
Yeah,
which,
because it wasn't anywhere
maybe
near
explained
that in the rest of the episode. And okay,
no.
you could maybe argue that it's part of the whole toy maker's disruption of the fabric of reality, blah 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 blah. And perhaps that is what it is. But at the very least, change the music. And it's fine for the rest of the. I love the music for the rest of the episode. It's beautiful. It's really emotive when it needs to be. It's characterful when it needs to be, and it's exciting and entertaining. But at the end, it's somehow they dialed it up. I can see all the the registers flashing into red, and it's just awful. So yeah, I would change that.
Right. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So no,
I wouldn't change anything. No, I would change this.
Actually, I'll do this, and this.
No, think about it.
So I think you've got one more question
for us. I've kind of got two more, really.
Have you?
I've got. They're both from Facebook, and we have to acknowledge Christopher Chatfield, who's one of our top fans. We love you dearly, Christopher, but he's asked us something, and I don't know how to say this, really, but the question is simply, 30 cows in the field and 28 chickens. How many didn't? To which I've got no idea, actually. And bless you, Christopher, you do explain it to us, and it's a puzzle. Try it on your mates, and I kind of see it. But it's a good one. But I've still no idea, my friend. So.
I saw that post, and I was like, what?
But it did make me chuckle, that's for sure.
We did say, ask us anything,
did. And he did, bless him. It's there.
He did.
It's right there.
And he did explain it, yeah. So,
and please keep them coming, even if I don't understand them. Because one day, you never know, we
you
might.
will,
so,
yeah.
Okay, so we do have another one, which is from Richard Hardman. We've kind of deliberately left this one to the end, and it's quite a deep one. So the question is, thanks, Richard, can the divided fandom ever be fixed, or is it more of a wider society issue? Ooh. For which I guess, first off, you've got to say, well, okay, is the fandom actually divided? Do you think it is, Jeff?
I think... Is divided the right word? I think that there are fractions within the fandom,
now we're talking about little groups.
Some
cells.
people like splinter cells,
militant cells.
Yeah, some people like this, some people like that, and those people don't like that, and they don't like that, and there's a lot of fighting, which often I think can cross the line into personal insults against other fans, people on the show as well, and I think that it's quite ironic for a show with a lead character who's essentially about being kind and helping people that we have this kind of stuff. And I think that we supposedly all love the same show. And I think, respecting other people's views, like I was just saying earlier, you may not like something, but someone else does. Well, berating them about it, they're never going to go, oh yeah, shit, you're right, I'm wrong for having enjoyed that. I think
it's not going to happen, is it?
It's not going to happen,
but
and certainly not by
telling them that they are wrong for
still, objectively wrong.
Whatever, there's a 5-hour treatise on YouTube that exactly.
And it's never going to happen. I mean, you say you went, I think the Earth is flat, and you said here is evidence to prove you wrong.
And let me pour water on it to show you that gravity is false. Haha, you see? So how does the water stick? I've seen that, actually. That's a true thing. I've seen people do that.
Is it really?
Yeah, to try and disprove the whole gravity and Earth is round.
You mean the mavity? I
would change that as well.
So, moving on. So you go, oh, okay, yeah, crikey, you've proved me wrong there, but yes, I think the fandom is somewhat divided into camps, with needless infighting, and getting worked up over things. Maybe it's just me. I just, and I will admit that, in the past I have.
You have responded.
I have responded, and I have,
and actually through online bullying, pretty much as well. I've seen some.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the receiving end of that, and I think there's a lot of people, particularly fans of Jodie's era, who have had a lot of that as well, and are rightly upset by that. And I think I don't like seeing cobblers basically online. When people make stuff up about people or report incorrect facts, such as DWM doesn't sell with Jodie on the cover, and I will challenge that, and push back. But I've never gone around going, well, you're an idiot because you didn't like this episode, or you're wrong for liking Capaldi or whatever, because I don't believe any of that, and I kind of think this is like, have you ever seen that meme that's like society if everyone did whatever, and it's like a utopia, like new Earth. Imagine what it would be like if we could all just get on and enjoy Doctor Who together, and
could
someone said,
exist?
Well, could it? I don't think it could really, because I think negativity gets peddled online a lot these days. You only need to go to YouTube, and the first page recommendation is failure of this and disaster of that, and then we pop up and we're like, hey, we like it, and
that's probably why they get loads of hits though.
Well, yeah, I think it is, and it's pushed at you. That's the whole thing, and I'm sort of rambling a bit here, but I just think there's a lot of sort of anger and hate, and it's quite easy to sort of have an argument with people when you're behind a profile picture that's not even you, and a username and stuff like that, and is it a wider societal issue? There's probably an element of that. Politics comes into it quite a lot, I think, and beliefs and stuff like that, and I don't know if it could ever be repaired properly, because at the end of the day, people are always going to like things and not like things, and but I think it's just the way individuals respond to those differences. You didn't like Kill the Moon. I don't think you're a prick for it.
Well, you do, but
yeah, I'm just not going to tell you.
You just tell me I'm wrong. And same for not liking Avatar particularly, but
I mean, that is criminal.
But you don't like Star Wars either, so that's just unforgivable.
No, well, I like Grogu. I don't dislike it at all. I don't know. I must be some sort of massive simpleton. I don't care.
No.
It's
the point is we're all different and we all like different things. And I know this has often been said online, but it's actually really true. But there does seem to be a kind of inability among certain people to somehow not recognise that.
It's strange as well with Doctor Who in some ways, because it's like Chris Chibnall described it, chapters. Was that how he described it? Each era is like a volume, and because there's these variations within these chapters, of course, the Doctor, the companions, the tone and all of that, a fan, anyone, is going to like, is going to have a preference towards something and less towards another and things like that, whereas other stuff is less kind of varied. Do you know what I mean?
So there's a scene in the Monty Python film, The Life of Brian, right, which is where Brian is running away from the masses who want to adore him and follow him and be, form a cult and a religion and everything else. He doesn't want any part of that. He just wants his life back. And he's running away across the desert sands, and he loses his sandal, right? And as he goes along, he loses other bits of clothing and, jewelry and stuff like that. And the people running after him, someone finds a sandal and lifts it up, and he goes, oh, the sandal of the Messiah, or something like that. It's been a while since I watched it, and they decide to worship the sandal, right? That's their thing now. So that's their representation of Brian. Somebody else finds a bracelet, and it's going to be his underpants or something like that, and they're going to worship that. So Brian has kind of somehow been lost in the mix. What they actually worship is the object, and that sole representation.
The idea
everything else outside of that is somehow heresy, is not right, is not we. And I think this happens with Doctor Who and Star Wars and various other things. There are certain people who will latch on to a particular doctor or a writer or a showrunner or whatever, and that or just their favourite years of Doctor Who, their favourite season, and say this is what it should be, and that's fine. I think we all do that in a way. But then there seems to be an inability among certain people to actually appreciate the wider context, that all of it is valid, that other people's love for another part of the show, or for the whole of the show for whatever reasons, is just as valid as theirs. And all it needs, actually, instead of arguing the toss and getting really nasty online about it, is just to respect that and have a lovely discussion, like we tend to do on occasion.
Well, because, I've said that before online, we all say we love the show, so let's talk about the things that we do like, rather than fighting over the things that we don't like.
And there lies the key. So we have to be intelligent enough to understand that and respond in a way that the Doctor would approve.
Yes.
So try and be kind, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
we're getting really righteous now, aren't we?
Trying to be kind is the best way.
It's a nice aspiration. It's not always achievable, but
it's not always possible, as the Doctor would surely say. This is getting quite deep. I'll just end by saying, if we just join the Avatar fandom, you get none of this. Everyone
that's
just
beautiful.
praises the at the altar of Big Jim. And
isn't that
realises
almost like a cult itself, though? We praise James Cameron so much that he can do no wrong.
You saying it's a cult? You could go screw yourself for that.
Man, you look scary. Oh dear.
Well, I've enjoyed this Ask Us Anything. What do they call it on Reddit? Ask me AMA, isn't it? Ask me anything. That doesn't work for a duos. This is AUA. Ask Us Anything. So maybe we should do another one of these in a couple of months, because this has been good fun. So if we, I think we've answered every question that we've had, haven't we? So we hope you've enjoyed hearing our thoughts and ramblings on stuff, and would love to hear any thoughts that you might have based off of our thoughts, and let's have a thought-off about it all. It's like a face-off,
that implies some kind of telepathic sort of conference or meeting of minds.
Connect. So, so thanks for listening, as always, or watching if you're on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time on Who Corner to Corner.
Ta-ta for now.
TTFN.